LEC Summer Split. Let's hit the rift.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's Vedi.
Vedi who?
Vedi many time, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready? Are you ready for Vedi many time?
He told me to trust him. He said it was going to be good. It's Vedi time. Let's go. League of Legends.
That was great.
That was awful.
I had a more elaborate one, and I decided, no, I'll cut it.
What? Anyway.
Vedi who? It's Vedi time.
That would have been better.
Joke. That's the joke. That's what I said.
You said it's Vedi time.
That's what, that's what you're upset about?
My name comes first. League of Legends, guys. Schalke versus Misfits. Schalke, if they win here, secure a spot in playoffs. Misfits, of course, still fighting for their playoff lives, but it's probably going to be a long way away for them. Only sitting at 4 and 10 right now. It's a long climb for Misfits, but maybe with Hansama and DOS coming in, we'll see their fortunes change.
You know, I took a gamble today, Medic. I decided to bet on Misfits in the prediction race. Has nothing to do with the fact that I'm 8 points behind you, and it's entirely to do with the fact that I believe. And a part of the reason why I believe is, like, I think we've been seeing some impressive stuff from the solo laners in the last few weeks. And that's not to say that the bot lane was necessarily a weak point, but I think that by introducing Hansama and DOS, it gives Misfits another avenue of attack, it gives them another potential option. And given that Schalke love to focus on the mid lane in the early game, I think that if Misfits try to leverage the strength of Hansama and his well-known Draven and Lucian picks, perhaps they can look to leverage an advantage in the bot side of the map rather than just rely on trying to get leader ahead.
Gives them another option to be sure in the game, but already that Draven has been banned away alongside the Aurelia and Yuumi here by Schalke. Akali, Xayah, and Karma taking away by Misfits Gaming, and immediately we'll see Trick on that Sejuani.
No surprises there. One of Trick's most comfortable champions, still very strong in the meta. We do see the hover. Never mind, we see the lock-in of the Yasuo almost immediately. The question is this a flex Yasuo? Nope, never mind. No, it's not. Thank you for answering that question for me, Misfits. We can assume that this will be going into Leader's hands, but what we don't know is whether Leader will go mid lane or top lane. That's one of the big questions. And with Akali banned out, Leader feels very confident that there are very few matchups that can clearly answer this. The fact that they would just straight up blind pick it, a very confident pick from the side of Misfits.
I mean, Leader's always been a very confident player in that mid lane. 0-10 or 10-0 as Quickshot said in ready check. Now we see Trick locking in the Aatrox. Expect that to go up towards the top lane. And Schalke looking towards their AD carry here. It was Kalista who was the hover, but instead they're going to lock in Gangplank.
All right, so this is quite interesting because you would assume that the Gangplank is in the top lane. Ooh, and we get to see the Gragas locked in as well. Now, if this was G2, we would assume that the Yasuo and the Gragas would be going bot lane. And a part of me wants to say that that's still a possibility with Misfits, but when you know what kind of a player that Leader is, you just can't expect that. So you would assume that Kirei will be playing the Gragas in the jungle, and we'll be synergizing up with Leader in the mid lane on that Yasuo.
And that's the expectation, but I think we can play Assassin Bingo a little bit here. Akali banned away, Yasuo picked. What have we got left? Kiana, Zed, both things that Leader would be very happy to play. Maybe he could take something else into the mid lane and we see Hansama putting his hands. Well, it wouldn't actually be Hansama because you've got the Kai'Sa locked in already.
Well, this is the question mark. Do they consider putting the Kai'Sa somewhere else?
Yeah.
Do they put it in the mid lane? Do they maybe put it in the top lane? I don't know. We are on a new patch. While I don't believe that there were massive changes and that the meta landscape has shifted dramatically, it does feel like Misfits have something prepared. But for now, we'll assume it is the standard. Gragas in the jungle, Yasuo in the mid lane, Kai'Sa and AD carry. Meanwhile, for Schalke, they do have the Aatrox is what you'd assume being put into the mid lane, with the Gangplank up topside. So a lot of their solo laners, well, all of their solo laners have been locked in, and they can synergize quite nicely with the Sejuani. It gives you a lot of power. What Schalke lack right now is AP, so they'll have to try and compensate for that by getting it somewhere else.
Could look for something like the Ezreal down towards that bottom lane. Upset very good on that champion, of course. 2-0 with a 12-1-11 KDA on it this split. Misfits deciding to remove supports from the pool in the form of the Nautilus and the Braum, and Schalke getting rid of the Rakan as well.
I do quite like when Braum is banned away when you're playing the Gragas because of how effective the shield is at mitigating the Gragas engages with his ultimates. I'm surprised though that Schalke are choosing to pinch the support pool so much. Does suggest that IgNar may be trending towards his Blitzcrank once again. And like their bot lane options are quite open because remember that they may look to go for something a little bit more AP centric. They could still go for the Ezreal, yet to be decided.
Could go for something very safe as well. We talked about how Misfits have a stronger bottom lane with Hans Summer, another avenue to attack. Ezreal Tahm Kench is still on the cards. That could be something we see come out here from Schalke.
Very true.
Misfits going for the Vladimir as their, I was going to say, it's not a blind pick top laner because we already have both the solo laners picked from Schalke, but as their safe top lane pick.
So they're assuming that the Gangplank is going up towards top side. They're going to be running the Vlad into the Gangplank because it gives you a lane that you can pretty much freely scale into. And then obviously they blind picked the Yasuo, so they were pretty confident into any matchup. And they're going to likely draft that into the mid lane with the Gragas in the jungle. So they've saved their support pick for last so that DOS can try and get counter. Now, typically, DOS is a player that likes to play a lot of these engaged playmaking champions. You can see the Rakan and Pyke banned off the board. These would typically be his go-to support picks. So I'm curious as to what direction he now goes in. Will he go for something ranged that adds a bit of aggression, or will he go for something a little bit safe, given that he'll be going up against the Thresh?
Love this bottom lane, though, from Schalke. Lucian, Thresh. It was something that carried me to Diamond 2 in its heyday, and now still a very strong and aggressive bottom lane. IgNar, of course, known for his Thresh play. We'll see how Misfits decide to answer this. DOS did have, well, it's got clarity and exhaust, so maybe he was looking towards a Yuumi, but Alistar could work out well for him down towards this bottom side of the map.
Okay, so nothing too crazy going on, kind of going as we expected. We've clearly cast too much G2 because we think there's way more flexing than there actually is. But in any case, what we can see from Misfits is pretty heavy on the scaling department. So far, what we've seen a lot from this team is that they try to get advantages in the early game. Kirei is a jungler that spends a lot of attention towards his laners very early on, and he tries to set up a snowball for his team. Sometimes that's worked, a lot more times it hasn't. This time around, it feels like Misfits have gone back to their roots, and they have gone for the 1-3-1 style, with Leader on a split push carry, Dan on another split push carry, and they're just looking to play the lane relatively safe. Meanwhile, for Schalke, they have a lot more team fight options in their toolkit, but I feel like in the early game, we have to keep our eyes on the bot side of the map. When you're running Thresh and Lucian, you already talked about it. One of the best for climbing the solo queue ladder because of how aggressively you can play in the 2 versus 2 lane. It gives you a lot of options to find leads, especially when working with your jungler. So we'll see how much focus Trick puts in towards the bot side of the map.
A lot on the line for both these teams. Schalke with the opportunity to lock themselves in playoff, joining G2, Fnatic, Splice as the 4th team that will be making it into our playoff rounds. Misfits still fighting for their lives. 4-10. 4 wins would be great for them, but it's going to take a long, long road if they're going to climb up towards that 6th place spot. And I think the question has to be, how much is the introduction of Hans Summer and DOS going to do for this team? Will it revitalize them the same way that we saw Misfits revitalized when Leader and Kirei and Dan joined them in the middle of the split? Or will we see the same old troubles for Misfits? Because so far this split, they've been a disappointment.
Yep, I'm excited. I'm looking forward. It's going to be Misfits versus Schalke. This is the beginning of week 8, ladies and gentlemen. Let's jump onto the Rift.
In early doors, I want to bring attention to some of the summon spells picked in the bottom lane. We talked about how the Lucian Thresh can be aggressive, but you've got Exhaust on IgNar and Teleport on Upset to the heal, Ignite on Hans Summer and DOS.
Yeah, that's very true. So what Schalke have is a lot more options to move around the map when we hit the mid game. By utilizing the teleport, not only does it allow you to go for early bases, but it also allows you to make cross-map plays. It allows you to set up for opportunities with regards to setting up for sieges, and it just gives you a lot of options, but you lose some of your, lose some of your all-in power. I wouldn't be surprised to see Upset actually trade some of his health early on to just go for some more aggressive trades, and then look for an early base, get an early item advantage, and then leverage that over the likes of Hans Summer. So if we can keep an eye on how the bot lane plays out to see what Upset tries to do in this early laning phase, and we'll also keep an eye on what Trick tries to do in terms of his early pathing, because typically Schalke have this tendency of always playing around mid lane, Trick specifically. We heard Ender talking a little bit about it. We talked about it last week as well, where his focus seems a lot on enabling Abbedagge and making sure that he can be successful not only during the laning phase, but pretty much throughout the game. When he moves off to a side lane, Trick is often there to support him, and sometimes that comes at the detriment of not supporting his strong sileners. And in this game, I really want to see him enable Upset and try and get the ball rolling on this Lucian.
Keep our eyes on that Sejuani as he goes through his jungle path. Red down to Krugs is the early rotation for him. Bottom lane, Upset and IgNar forcing Hansama and DOS just a little bit back here. They have a slight XP advantage because they have killed one more caster creep, and so they'll hit that level 2 just that little bit earlier. And DOS and Hansama should be able to respect that and understand that is what's going to happen early on in this lane.
I want to draw the viewers' attentions very quickly to the jungle pathing, largely because Kirei has actually started on his blue, gone to Wolves, and is now making his way towards Raptors. This is very unconventional for Gragas players, normally because they like to clear one side of the map, usually the red side of the map, so that they can get to level 3, get the early Predator boots, and then go back to base and come back out on the map looking for maybe some early ganks, but also just to have early access to the Predator. This suggests to me that Kirei may be looking for an early gank up towards the top side. Or he might be doing this is quite surprising to me. This isn't what you normally do on your early pathing. We'll see where he goes from it from this point on, because you can actually see Trick is doing the conventional early jungle start, where he's actually done a full bot side clear. He'll do an early base, he'll restock, he'll pick up his second jungle item, and then he'll move up towards top side. And for junglers that are a little more on the scaling end, not looking for early intention, that's what you'll normally see. So, yeah.
So as giving his support to the team, even if they have slightly unconventional early jungle routes, saying Misfits will win this one, I do believe. Supporting his team even after he left them in the middle of the split. There's some Misfits fans in the crowd here as well. And trying to shut down Schalke. Control ward used here by Trick, but he was on a ward already, so Leader will know that the 4 is just around the corner. Leader's gone back to pick himself up the Predator boots alongside a Talisman and that machete.
So I'm just tracking Kirei right now, because his pathing is definitely quite unique. At least he is towards the bot side of the map, because now this is where you'd like conventionally be to now clear out your bottom side, get the level 4. I guess he's accepted the fact that he wouldn't be able to contest the top side scuttle. Yeah, it's just it's just surprising me.
Yeah, but it's a learning process for all of us, because maybe he does something very unique with
I mean, what it does give you the opportunity to do is Hansama and DOS, with their more aggressive summoner spells, they now have jungle pressure around this, and he's actually looking for a mid lane play, so we'll see if he can pull this one.
Abbedagge pushed up in the lane, Leader coming in. Kirei comes in, lands the belly bop. Leader pushing forward as well, but Trick is here in time, and Kirei might actually get pulled back here. Has to flash away. Didn't want to get too close to that Sejuani. Now looking for a little bit of trade damage, but not too much more is going to happen.
Okay, so just a bit of pressure being exerted onto Abbedagge as the wave was pushing towards Leader. He dances back in.
Leader looking for the knockups here. Abbedagge dodging around with the Dark Blade. Lands the third proc. The knockup comes out. Kirei with a double belly bomb. Abbedagge is ignited, ticking away, but Trick is there as bodyguard. Abbedagge will just retreat down towards the bottom side.
IgNar was making his way up. Thank you, observers, for highlighting that. But just a couple of summoner spells burn from everyone. Abbedagge still holds on to the teleport, so he can actually look to base now and then TP back into lane, while Leader tries to push this one in. It was smart of Schalke to disengage when they did, because Leader got the level up, and playing the bot lane.
DOS is not in good shape here at all. Flayed back. Upset there, the lantern available for him, but Trick is in here in time. DOS still has the flash. Trick, of course, used his earlier on. Flash pop, but there goes the Alistar as well. Hansama might have to flash away from this, because that stun is proccing. Will get underneath the tower and remain safe.
Good punish from the side of Schalke. Hansama and DOS tried to force a 2 versus 2 fight with the wave pushing in their favor. What they didn't respect was how easy it was for the jungler to rotate down and offer that support. Notice how Kirei moves up towards top side to clear out his Raptors, whereas Trick moves towards the bot side of the map. And this is just a lack of awareness and lack of respect of where the jungler could be. And they overcommit and they end up getting punished for it.
Both summoners burnt there, both the flashes on the Alistar and the Kaisers. It's going to be very hard for Hansama and DOS to play aggressively in that lane. A single hook, a single flay can really pull you out of position. And IgNar and Upset held onto their flashes. So it's going to be very hard for Misfits down towards that bottom side now.
Look at the discrepancy being built up in the bot lane as well. Hansama already 2 waves ahead of his lane opposition. And now he's actually choosing to hold onto the teleport for now. Be very aware that Hansama needs to base and reset, so he has that summoner spell available for a potentially later game play. But Gangplank now has the ultimate. Trick getting close to that level 6 mark. I want to see Schalke set up another play towards the bot side of the map. There are no summoner spells available. And even if the Vladimir were to TP in, I feel like this early into the game, Schalke should still be able to win a 4 versus 4 in the bot side of the map.
Especially since Dandan hasn't based yet, so he's only got a Doran shield in his inventory. Leader has built up a little little bit of a lead in the mid lane, about 16 farm ahead. A lot of that will be because of the time Kirei spent around his lane. And DOS trying to Hex Flash away there as Trick comes into the jungle. Going to look for a little bit of an invade here as Abbedagge comes across as well, and Kirei is forced away from his blue. Going to be quite hard for him to challenge for this one, but DOS and Hansama on their way. Hex Flash across the wall. DOS looking for the engage, lands it onto Trick, but didn't catch him. Blue did go across to Kirei there, and now DOS is caught out of shape. The Cannon Barrage comes out, and DOS will be sacrificed here. Schalke get another kill.
Yeah, questionable decision-making there from DOS. I feel like that I can understand that he was trying to help Kirei secure his blue buff, and he just wanted to offer assistance, but in that situation, Misfits could not look to fight. The Lucian is extremely strong. If the Aatrox, given the fact that the Aatrox is already in position to follow with the rest of the team, they were always going to win. Now we see IgNar making his way towards mid.
Trick is here as well, has the level 6, the ultimate available for him. The Glacial Prism looking to land it, a good Steel Tempest, and there's the Wind Wall as well. Well blocked out there by Leader. Glacial Prism comes out, Odo's rotated down from the top lane. Leader trying to dodge away, uses Odo as a stepping stone to get up towards top, and here comes the Vlad down, but Leader has to dodge around as much as he can. In the end, he will go down. The last breath will not save you now. Trick takes him out.
4 versus 1, Leader does what he can to get out, and he did pretty much everything that he could have possibly done, but in the end it was not enough. Now Hansama looking to dive upset.
How much can they do with the fact that IgNar was not in this lane? They knew he wasn't here. DOS gonna be the one to tank up the tower. Nox upset into the wall. The Ignite is ticking. Upset flashes away, but Hansama secures the kill, and DOS will get out alive. I thought he didn't lose aggro there for a second, but Misfits execute a strong tower dive in the bottom lane.
So this is really good for Misfits, given that they were able to punish. You get a little bit more gold back into Hansama's pocket. You put the Lucian behind. Of course, now he still has that teleport, so he can quickly come back to lane and put the pressure back on. We can see both teams trading blows in the early game, but remember, we already talked about in draft how Misfits have much more of a scaling comp. Their composition turns on at a few more items once they've got a couple more levels under their belt, and you can just see a leader feels that he can go for this aggressive play because he has his jungler near him. What he doesn't respect is that he doesn't have push or priority in the top side of the map, allowing the Gangplank to come down, and that IgNar is able to roam up through the river, which Misfits have no vision of. And it's something that we've been saying a lot about Misfits really since this young roster joined the team, and it's that a lot of the map play, a lot of the awareness, they sometimes lack, and they end up getting punished as a result. And remember, Leader had a huge CS discrepancy in the mid lane. That's now been equalized due to finding that kill.
And although Dandan is relatively safe in the lane into Odoamne, Odo will always have the push early on. Dandan's going to struggle to clear out the waves before he hits those couple of items you were talking about. He teleported in behind Odo towards this top side. That Gangplank does still have flash. Hemoplague popped. Odo's going to try and walk his way away from this one. The Hemoplague will go down, but Odo survives, and Dandan just gets a little bit of pressure on his counter laner.
So Dandan bases, comes back with items, forces the play. Notice how Schalke are now starting this Drake, knowing that they have the push in mid. IgNar can move first because of where he is in the river. This means Schalke can guarantee a numbers advantage, and Odo has just base so he can TP in and offer support immediately. So very safe Drake, very aware. Now Trick looking for a play on the bot side of the map.
Kirei snuck into the second bush. I'm not sure Schalke are aware that he is there. Upset. Almost stepped into it. Kirei there, in the right position. Upset's by himself at the moment. Here comes Trick, but Kirei jumps straight onto Upset. Cannon Barrage in the wrong place. DOS on the back line now as Upset goes very low. 300 HP left on him, but Hansama can't get in close enough. The cannon comes down, and it looks like Schalke are going to take 2, but Hansama is trying to turn it around. Kirei survives for a moment, but Trick gets the double kill. Hansama just about lands the Void Seeker. One more auto's enough, and he's still alive as Trick eventually takes him down. Abbedagge comes in with the World Ender, and Leader's just trying to dance around the fight as much as he can, but he will get one shot down. The last breath comes out. Leader trying to take it in a 2v1. Can he turn this around in favor of Misfits? Abbedagge, the World Ender's not procced anymore, and Leader looks for the knockup, lands it. Abbedagge's going to have to try and retreat, but here comes the Darking Blade back, and Leader will realize he can't take the fight anymore.
Wow, Misfits end up making that a 3 versus 3 due to Leader's roam down towards the bot side of the map. This play should have gone horribly wrong for Misfits. Note how they commit very hard onto Upset, but the Gangplank cuts off their escape. A very clutch exhaust comes out from IgNar as well, and the damage is separated from the front line, which means that Hansama has to dive in. He kills IgNar, but some clutch stopwatches and a great placement of the W allows him to secure that final kill onto Upset as he's just proccing into vision as he dashes between brushes, and then Leader comes in with the Ignite. He has enough damage to take down Trick, recognizes he cannot win this 1 versus 1, so disengages, and now the action is not slowing down. The Rift Tower being started.
DOS and Hansama have rotated up towards the top side, realizing they're losing that bottom lane. 30 CS down, or 20 CS down but it looks like Schalke were quick on the trigger to make the change themselves. Upset's up here to help out Odoamne, and Misfits won't be able to get that Rift Herald. Was spotted out by Trick, and it looks like everyone has decided we don't need to play around bot lane anymore. 5v5 on the top side of the map. Misfits looking for a little bit of action.
Note that Misfits don't really have any completed items just yet. So in terms of going for a fight this early on, it would be dangerous when Upset already has the Blade of the Brewing King done. The Gangplank is sitting on the Sheen, which gives him a lot of power. And this Sejuani does have the completed Cinder Hulk and is very tanky, soaks up a lot of damage. So Misfits have to be very cautious about how they try and force these fights, because right now it feels like Schalke, in terms of itemization and gold, are just in a stronger spot.
Big wave pushing down towards that bottom lane that Odoamne is going to go and answer. He doesn't have his teleport, so Misfits know they are 5 men strong on the top side. Looking for that Rift Herald. Upset pushes out a wave to top and now comes around to join his team, but I don't think Schalke are going to fight over this one. Trick is going down towards the bottom side. Misfits should be able to secure this pretty easily, unless Upset and IgNar can get a miracle steal.
Okay, so Schalke decide not to try and take that fight because they recognize Gangplank is in the bot side of the map. He cannot join due to the lack of teleport and no Gangplank ultimate available, so we'll just trade Herald for plates. They're fine with this. He's going to get a much earlier Trinity Force into the game. Dan then will be able to join bot, and now we see a fight.
Leader locked up with the Glacial Prism. Perfection there from Schalke as they find the kill on the mid lane assassin. And although he has had a couple of flashy plays, Leader isn't showing us that 10-0 at Yasuo we wanted to see.
It feels like that he's not fully respecting the positioning of the jungle, and we have to give a lot of praise to Trick this game because he has been spending so much time not only around his mid laner, but influencing the bot as well. He's been involved in 100% of the kills so far, and he's doing a great job in this early game to get Schalke ahead, which is what they needed with this comp. We talked so much about how Misfits have more of a scaling comp, Schalke have much more power in the early game, and it was important that they found those early game advantages. And so far, Trick has been able to find that for his team.
Put them in a very good spot. 2,500 gold ahead as we crest the 14-minute mark in this game. They have an Inferno Drake. No towers have fallen yet, but a lot of plates going over to the Schalke lineup. Only one on the side of Misfits that I can see, and as turret plates fall, I'm sure we'll find out exactly the numbers and the amount of gold that each team has picked up from those plates in a couple of moments' times. Next steps though, Inferno Drake up in just under a minute's time. You can see Schalke say, okay, we want to play around the bottom side of the map now. We had these item spikes, the Blade of the Ruined King, completed Cinder Hulk on Trick. We can take a fight if Misfits want to force it around that drag.
See, I think Misfits should look to concede the Drake and then use Rift Herald to secure mid, because trying to gain priority over River is a lot harder for them to do when Schalke is first to bot and the Yasuo is there for the time being. Abbedagge is holding mid, and you can already see Schalke with full River control. I think it would be very dangerous for Misfits to try and force this. The only reason why they can consider it is because Dandan's TP is about to come up, whereas Odo's is not yet available. So while his ulti is available, he won't be able to directly join the fight. So Misfits have the potential to create a 5 versus 4, but even then, I feel like they should be using this window to try and take advantage of the Rift Herald to force something like the mid lane tower.
You can see Odo realizing he won't have that TP advantage as well, comes down, joins the team, makes it a full 5-man here for Schalke. Misfits will use the Rift Herald mid, but Upset and Odo are here to defend. Infernal Dragon has been started. Upset will now be there by himself, and we'll see if Misfits decide to go for that push in the mid lane that you called, Vedius. Instead, they just use the Rift Herald. That's not really going to do anything because Upset can just hold it, so Schalke get the Infernal.
The mistake here was what I think Misfits wanted to do was play the Rift Herald to then draw attention towards it. So Schalke as a 5-man couldn't commit to the Drake.
Distraction
So then
tactics.
Misfits could then move into the river and set up a fight. But Schalke had already started the Drake. By the time Misfits even entered the river, the Drake was basically dead. So now they're looking for a plan to Abbedagge in the bot lane.
Leader looking for the knockup here. Kind of rush comes out. Doss will land it. Last breath used as well, but Abbedagge is still very, very healthy. The Darkin Blaze connecting. Cloud on Leader is almost falls. Gets away just for the moment. The pops and wind wall. In the end, he will fall to Trick. Another kill goes down for the Schalke jungler. I believe Upset gets it instead. It's a double for the Lucian. And that's too easy for Schalke.
And Misfits try so hard to force that play, and it ends in disaster. 2 members fall. Schalke find themselves more kills. Odoamne is going to get free reign on this tower and will likely take it down along with the bot tower. Schalke, after that single play, take everything.
5,000 gold lead for them at the 16.5-minute mark. It's a devastating advantage. You've got Trinity Force finish, you've got items stacking up on your Lucian. Abbedagge is getting up towards his first completed item as well. It's going to be very hard, you have to think, for Misfits to get back into this game. And Schalke, next step's pretty easy. You can still continue to use that Gangplank in a side lane if you want.
So even though the cooldowns don't indicate it, you've got to bear in mind the number of teleports that are available right now. And you can see the immediate TP comes in from the Lucian. He can join the bot lane fight. The Gangplank ultimate is there as well. IgNar is able to roam down very quickly, which turns what should have been a 3 versus 1 in favor of Misfits into a 4 versus 3. They end up getting shut down, and Schalke's able to punish them. And again, I feel like a lot of this game is just Misfits not respecting the options that Schalke has, and every time they try to make a play, Schalke has an opportunity to answer back and punish.
I think a lot of it is proving why Schalke are probably the 4th best team in our league right now, and the team on the cusp of making it into playoffs. Of course, with this win, they would secure that spot alongside Fnatic, G2, and Splice.
I also feel that one of Schalke's biggest strengths is how strong they are reacting to situations. They are very decisive, and it feels like the moment a call is made, the rest of the team follow. Sometimes that can hurt them, but most of the time it helps them, and it means that when you try to force plays onto them, you have to be very careful.
Flash away there by Upset. IgNar not in a good position as all of Misfits barrel down towards him. He will be sacrificed, goes golden for a moment, but when all 5 members of Misfits are around you, you will fall. A Cathian Rain from Hans Summer secures the kill.
But look at the minimap. Odoamne pushed in bot, Abbedagge pushed in top. So even though Misfits do find a kill onto IgNar, they can't convert it into anything. They don't have pressure anywhere. And this is what I'm saying. Schalke, whenever they're making a move, it's because they're setting up something else on the map. And Misfits, it feels like that they're only looking at one thing at a time, which means that they get caught off guard. So they're constantly catching and reacting to the pressure that Schalke is constantly generating.
And part of that has to come down to the fact this Misfits squad has been sort of a hodgepodge throughout the split as well, being partly the strong first roster, then a new roster that came in. And sometimes plays like this, you know, they can help you out, but it's not too monumental for Schalke to lose IgNar.
I mean, yes, and the play itself from Misfits is good. Schalke's trio in the mid lane overstepped while the duo was pushing on the sides, and that was a good punish from the side of Misfits. And you're right, they got put into an awkward situation where this roster joined this team when they were, what, 2-6, 2-7?
So, yeah.
And so they've been doing what they can to turn the situation around, but it hasn't been an easy road to climb. And with a lot of tough opposition still left to go throughout the split, if they do manage to qualify for playoffs, it will definitely be an impressive feat. But you're just kind of seeing the difference in experience and cohesion that the likes of Schalke has versus the likes of Misfits. Now, that's not to say that this game is completely done and dusted. We talked a lot about how Misfits do have scaling options, and while things look very bleak for now, it's very much on Schalke to continue pushing with their lead. And they're doing a pretty good job of generating pressure on sides and trying to split Misfits up, but Misfits have options where they can try and match on sides, or they can keep grouping and keep trying to force these fights. For now, Misfits are going to go answer on the side lanes, and they just need to avoid getting into more fights and getting picked off.
Kind of Barrage used Trick looking for Hans Summer, but Hans Summer will flash away. Playing pretty well today, 4-1-1 on that Kai'Sa after a difficult laning phase, and showing why he was such a stalwart of the Misfits squad for such a long time. Schalke will be looking to try and open up this mid lane tower, you have to think. It's stopping them from being able to get a lot of deep vision into the Misfits jungle, and Misfits are playing well around the top side of the map, making sure that Schalke don't have awareness of both sides of that mid lane river for the entirety of the game.
I mean, Misfits are mainly just playing where they have pressure, right? So they have the push in top, and they're able to control mid with their numbers, so it gives them access into the topside river, but it does not give them access to the Drake. And this is the 3rd Infernal of the game. Schalke already have 2. Misfits do not want to concede this one, but notice again, Abbedagge has teleport. They have 3 on their team, so they can constantly have someone threatening a side lane. Schalke are just biding their time for now, because they know that it's not easy for them to gain access to the river. Misfits are the ones that have to try and force something, but the question is, can they come out of this with their heads intact?
They're going to up the tempo. Teleport coming in behind them as Abbedagge is going to join the fight. Trick jumping in, knocked airborne. Gragas gets it, Misfits get it, but will they get out of this one alive? The hook lands onto Dandan. 1 down already as leader pays the iron price. Hemo play used by Dandan on the backline, but Hans Summer so low. Odo will take him out. Dandan trying to flash in to take down Upset, but already Dos has fallen as well. 3 kills to Schalke as they decimate Misfits.
Misfits may have found the Drake, but they will not be able to walk away with their lives. Schalke find 3, and now they have the right set on the mid lane tower. Maybe another kill.
Chase still on here. Sanguine Pool used there by Dandan. He will get out just in time, but 21 minutes on the clock means the Baron is very much alive, and Schalke will turn their eyes straight towards that objective.
Now there is no vision, so Kirei has to walk through the darkness, and IgNar is lying in wait. No flash on the side of Kirei. He will do what he can, but I don't think he can approach this objective.
He'll take the Krugs, that's what he'll do here, Vedius. The Baron will fall, Schalke will secure it. 21.5 minutes in, they have an 8,000 gold lead. And they are looking hungrily at that playoff spot.
Great punish from the side of Schalke. They knew exactly what they were doing, and you talked a lot about how while Misfits had vision control over the top side of the map, they did not have it over the bot side. So Abbedagge gets this great flank that allows them to get this collapse onto Misfits. Leader is stuck between a rock and a hard place as he gets shut out immediately, and Misfits can't generate the fight that they want. The carries are killed off instantly, and Schalke find a very quick cleanup. Beautifully played from the side of Schalke.
Impeccable stuff from them all round. You can see how much damage Odoamne can do if he's in a fight now with that Trinity Force complete. Building up towards an Essence Revive. I believe he's just completed that one as well. Very difficult now for Misfits to find a way back into this game because what was holding Schalke back? Well, not having that mid lane tower. They now have a Baron buffed wave to push in with. And Misfits just trying to do something out of the Fnatic playbook here. Playing down towards the bottom side, Odo says, okay, well, I can't see half of them on the map.
Really
so
good awareness.
Stand under the tower.
Really good awareness from Odo. He knew this was coming. Can he get out of it, though?
Yeah, there you go. Bit of instinct in. He can't, is the answer there, Vedius. And Schalke actually not able to use that time for the mid lane. Abbedagge will have a little bit of an avenue up towards top side to try and take the tower for himself.
But again, Schalke immediately have an opportunity to punish this. They have multiple members in the mid lane. They're going to push down this tower. They're threatening the top tier 1 as well. So even though Misfits find a kill, and maybe they can find the bot tower, Schalke are going to take so much more. 2
towers already off this Baron play. Hans Summer will be picking up the gold here from this tower, although Odo thinks he can stop it just in time. It's not actually Odo, it's Upset coming down here towards the bottom lane as Odo was still dead. And perhaps Hans Summer's going to be caught out here because Schalke think they have the flank positioning. Trick going to jump over the wall. That's the thing with the Arctic Assault. IgNar going forward. Puts the exhaust down, puts the box down as well, and Upset is very happy to take that kill away from IgNar's greedy hands. Another one for Schalke. It's Hans Summer's 3rd death of the game, and Misfits' hope is slowly dwindling.
Again, great utilization of the teleport from the side of Schalke. They see Hans Summer doing his best to take that tower, but he is overstayed. He did not have the time to secure it, and once again, Misfits get punished, and they're kind of doing whatever they can to stall out this game, but their stall tactics are not working very effectively. Their second items are just coming through, but they're still very far away for many members, and Schalke, with this kind of an advantage, should feel very strong and very confident for at least the next 10 minutes of the game.
If the game lasts that long.
If it even lasts that long.
It's 50 seconds left on the Baron buff. Schalke will have taken 5 towers off it, maybe 4 actually, if I remember correctly. Misfits, of course, not out of playoffs if they lose here, but they do face G2, Vitality, and Splice in their next 3 games, so no easy feat for them to climb into that 6th place, especially with Origin and Rogue still fighting over it. I think they've only played teams in the top half of the table, which is a very difficult path, you have to think.
It certainly is. So now we kind of look at what are Schalke's next steps. The Baron buff is just about to run out, and now they need to break into the enemy base. So one of the advantages of their comp is they do have the ability to play 1-3-1.
Yeah.
But I do think that they'd be much better off trying to set up more of a 0-4-1, where they send 0 people top lane, 4 people mid, and then 1 to a side. I'd say 0 people top lane. Excuse me, largely because I think that it's much easier to play between 2 lanes than it is 3. And I think that Misfits have a comp setup that's actually much better suited to actually handling the 2 side laners rather than grouping up as a 4-man unit. So I would rather try and see Schalke play through 2 lanes. So we'll see if that's what they decide to do. And right now, Odoamne has just pushed out top and has now decided to group up with his team while we see Abbedagge down towards the bot side of the map. And I think that this becomes much easier to actually set up a siege on towards the enemy towers.
And we'll see if Schalke are able to enact your game plan, Vedius. Your predictions have been pretty on point the last couple of weeks, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see them do exactly what you say. And Schalke here just getting some vision control around this red side jungle. There's a Cloud Drake up, but neither team really cares about that. We've had our fill of Infernals, and those are the only dragons that really matter. Give you more ability to kill people, and that's the important thing in League of Legends.
So it looks like for now, Schalke have decided to move away from killing and instead focused on objectives.
It's a shame.
Baron is spawning in about a minute and a half, so rather than go for my idea of playing for a 4-1, they're instead going to play the safer option. Yes, it does stall the game out a little bit longer. Yes, it does allow Misfits to get a couple of their second items, but when your gold lead is 10k, you don't really care. Schalke are fine playing the patient game, and a lot of what they just did was about setting up visions. You can already see a lot of deep control wards being set up towards the top side of the map. This is a good foundation that Schalke can then use to build upon to really deny this vision as they set up towards the mid lane, the top lane, and then eventually that Baron buff.
But Misfits will be looking at this and licking their lips and saying, you know, we have Rabadon's Proto Belt now finished on our Vladimir. We've got Morello Nomicon on our Gragas. We've got 2 completed items and the Infinity Edge Static Shiv on our Yasuo. If we get one good team fight, if we manage to take down Upset or IgNar at the start of a fight, maybe we can turn it around, because the game's delaying and Misfits only scaling, which is what we always said they wanted to do.
Yes, that is definitely true, and it is a potential. But this very much depends on whether or not Misfits can even gain access to the Baron, and a lot of that comes down to the setup from Schalke, and I do think that more often than not, they have a better setup than they do bad one. So you can already see the vision control. There is a very solid line with which Misfits cannot see anything. So the fact that they can't really approach right now and they're just sitting in their half of the jungle, making sure that Schalke don't overstep, is pretty much the best that they can do. They can't gain priority over the mid lane or the top lane, and Schalke don't even need all of their members to secure it. Upset and Trick will likely start off this Baron, and then we'll see IgNar and Odoamne try to zone off the enemy. But here come Misfits. When you're in a deficit, you group up as 5.
Poke lands onto DOS, pops the ultimate, pulled back, Cannon Barrage on the backside of this fight, and Misfits now have to take it. DOS falls first, Trick there with the first kill. Emo Plague used, and look at the backline, Dan's there, but already it's a double for Trick, and Odo's chasing out Dan. Killer Instinct in by Hans Summer, but already the rest of his team is down. Upset will fall in the hands of Hans Summer. Dan trying to face up in against Odo in the 1v1, he loses. Hans Summer surrounded by 3 hungry wolves of Schalke. It's an ace for Schalke, only losing 1.
Misfits had to face check. They did what they could by grouping up as a 5, but they were just too far behind. Schalke never gave them the opportunity to go for a steal. Instead, they would just break the base and maybe even look to end the game.
17 seconds left on Kirei. DOS just about to respawn, but Schalke, 4 members strong, can just look for this one. They haven't got their AD carry with them. Might be a little bit trickier than it could. DOS goes in, lands the knocker, but already he's down again. The ace comes out and Schalke realize maybe a little bit too greedy to go for that final win. They will take down another inhibitor tower. They'll take the inhibitor in the top lane, and with it, they will take a 13,000 gold lead.
Beautiful stuff from the side of Schalke. And again, notice how Misfits can't really see what's going on. They have no access to what's going on pretty much anywhere around the pit. And the idea is that when you're behind, you group up as 5 and you force your way into the enemy pit. But Schalke recognized that this was the game plan for Misfits, so they themselves put themselves in a position to then turn around for the team fight, which at this point in the game, they know they're stronger than. When you have this kind of a gold lead, it doesn't really matter what comp you have, you're able to come out on top. Props to Hans Summer for playing that as well as he could. He did get a couple of kills, but unfortunately it was not enough. And now Schalke will start up the Baron. Misfits not really in a position to contest, but you can see Kirei on the bot side of the map. And the best that Misfits can do is trade it for a tower.
And looking to try and take, well, it's their first tower of the game, 29 minutes in. But the Baron will fall here to Schalke, and Misfits actually might have pushed a little bit too far here. Dan caught up in the cannon barrage, Upset jumping forward as well, but the Hemo play comes down. Will Dan be able to survive through this? Dodges out with the Proto Belt, but he will fall. And Schalke get another kill under their belts. Dawson leader on the bottom side of the map. Schalke with Baron can look to use that mid-wave to push in for their second inhibitor of the game.
So those are the first 2 towers that Misfits actually have been able to take in this game, as Odoamne secures Schalke's second inhibitor. Misfits are in dire straits right now, and with Dan gone, they have very little hope of keeping this game alive.
Look at that damage from Odo as well. Now with the Phantom Dancer, he is absolutely decimating Misfits. They're going to wait for these super minions to push in. Odo can just look for a parlay. DOS so squishy. Only has the Zeeks. Teleport coming in. Glacial Prism will not connect. Schalke looking to end it right here, right now, as Kirei goes down to half. DOS trying to get in from the side. Leader lands a knock up on Abbedagge. Hans Summer's jumped onto the back line and already until it's dead. Hans Summer opening up the big guns as he tries to help his team survive in playoffs, but he's hooked and he's done. Schalke once again clean up the fight. It's now a 3v2, but Dan is back. Abbedagge gonna try and land a knock up on Leader, but he's stopped in his tracks by a Steel Tempest, and Schalke will not be able to close this one out.
However, Hans Summer does succeed in holding the line with his team. A beautiful play with him and DOS allow them to shut down Upset, and with him gone, it heavily mitigates some of the damage options that Schalke have in order to close out that game. So while it may not have been the best fight in the world, for Misfits who are in this position, this is the best key scenario for them.
holding on to your Nexus is the best case scenario for them right now. We're having another look at exactly how that fight happens. You have to keep your eyes on Hans Summer.
So the Schalke ultimate doesn't really land onto anyone, but note how the Gragas ultimate applies a mark onto Upset. This allows Hans Summer to dive onto the backline, and DOS is there to follow up. He tries to get the shutdown onto IgNar, but the knockup from Trick means that the hook can come in from IgNar, and that gives him enough crowd control to secure the kill. Leader has the outplay in his eyes, and he thinks that if he can just get that knockup onto Odo, maybe he can find himself another kill, but he decides to keep himself safe. And he does not go for it. So 2 inhibitors are down. Schalke will secure themselves their 4th Drake of the game. But is this enough for Misfits to say they have a chance? Because we look at these items. 4 are now finished for Hans Summer. That's a Zhonya's completed on Dandan. You also have the Sterax finished for Leader, and he's now level 17. And with the Baron buff running out in a minute, if Schalke cannot secure this inhibitor, it makes me wonder how much longer Misfits can stall for.
That is the question, Vedius. Can they hold on to this? Because Baron buff still, of course, on Odo, on Trick, on Abbedagge. Super minions pushing in 2 waves. Last chance saloon you have to feel here for Misfits. The Glacial Prison goes wide, but the inhibitor will fall no matter what. Misfits now trying to defend just at their Nexus towers. 2 towers and 1 Nexus between them and defeat. Schalke looking for that playoff run. Kirei, Cannon Barrage takes him low, but they both get back onto the fountain, and now that first Nexus tower will fall. Schalke have playoffs in their eyes. They have Athens in their eyes, and Misfits just trying to hold on to it. DOS knocks Trick away. Leader tries to jump onto the back line as he gets exhausted, and now Abbedagge is just acting as a bouncer for the rest of the team. Leader has to come in from the back. Hans Summer has to do something miraculous as Schalke push forward once again. The Hemo play comes out. Dandan heals up. DOS still alive, but Abbedagge goes on a rampage. Dandan goes gold, and Abbedagge is on the fountain. Trick's just on the Nexus. Abbedagge gets off the fountain, manages to survive. Dandan falls. Leader goes down. Hans Summer has to flash away, and Schalke have done it. They hook in Hans Summer, and they hook in a spot to playoffs.
Great game from the side of Schalke. It felt like that they punished every single mistake the Misfits made. And while they tried to go back to their conventional style of this 1-3-1, it was not enough to match the might of Trick's early game. 10, 1, and 13 was the final score for Trick. He even picked up a proto belt for the final fight. He was involved in 23 of the 27 kills that Schalke found for themselves, and he is a large part of where the turnaround for Schalke came. After last split, going 7-2 to then 2-7, losing a tiebreaker and then failing to qualify to playoffs, to now comfortably looking like the 4th best team in Europe. Schalke has come a long way compared to last split.
And they get their chance to fight in those playoffs in just a couple of weeks' time. Of course, with this win, they are locked. We said it enough times during the cast, but just once more to reiterate it for you. Misfits are not out as well if you are a Misfits fan at home. They can still run the gauntlet, but it's going to be an almighty gauntlet. Splice at G2 and Vitality stand in their way.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult next 3 games for Misfits. Difficult. It's difficult to judge whether or not the change with the bot lane was a huge difference. I feel like DOS for his first game didn't have the strongest of performances. Missed a couple of combos, overstepped a couple of times. But, you know, we did see what Hans Summer was able to bring. Almost turned a couple of those team fights around. You know, difficult to judge with only 1 game of play. And up against the likes of Schalke, it was always going to be a challenge. So we'll see if they continue with this setup moving into tomorrow's games, where it'll definitely be an important win. Regardless, Schalke looking good. I do feel like we got to see a lot from Trick. We once again saw him very heavily play around the mid lane. They did what they could to shut down Leader. But we also saw them impact the bot side of the map. Odo continues to get 0 jungle attention, but he didn't really need it in this game. He played a good Gangplank. He generated a lot of pressure in the early game. He had some good ultimate usage. And I feel like overall, Schalke had a very, very solid game.
Definitely did. The draft, of course, wasn't set up to make Odo have some jungle pressure early on. Vlad into Gangplank is not the most jungle-intensive matchup, but if you guys want to get involved at home, the key player of the game is your place to be. At LOL Esports on Twitter, you can vote for Trick, Abbedagge, or IgNar. If you don't vote for Trick, you're trolling.
I do think
10-1-13.
All right, bear in mind that IgNar was
some, unlucky for Misfits.
IgNar was 2-3-21.
Yeah.
So he was also involved in 23 of the 27 kills.
Yeah, but 10. League's about killing. More
just
about
saying.
how League is about killing. We're going to hand it over to Laure, who is interviewing Dylan Falco.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Dylan, for joining me. You can relax now. You guys are locked in playoffs. How does it feel?
we kind of knew going into this week that there was a very, very high chance we'd end up making playoffs, but it feels good to have it locked in. So yeah, pretty good.
What do you think about the game that led you to playoffs then?
It was, I think, classic Misfits game with this roster. They just play really crazy, a lot of fighting. I think Trick played really well and punished a lot of their mistakes.
Interesting build from Trick.
Yeah, the proto belt, not too sure about that one.
We'll discuss about this one later. One thing interesting is the fact that before the game, we had a talk, and you told me that you want the team to be less predictable coming to playoffs, and yet the draft you got today was very Schalke, so tell me about this.
Yeah, I think we went for the Sejuani first pick, not the most crazy champion, but I think you can see in the game, it went pretty well for us.
It went pretty well for you guys, but what can we expect from playoffs Schalke now?
I think we will be a very strong team in a best-of-5 scenario. We have so many players who have made it to Worlds before, who have made it to LEC finals before in past seasons. So I think with time to prep for one opponent and the kind of veterans we have, we will do really well.
Well, looking forward to see that. Congratulations again. And for more on this game, let's send it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Don. Congratulations to Schalke. They are into the playoffs, and they did it in a pretty convincing fashion. Let's talk a little bit about Misfits. The bot lane coming back, Hans, Sama, and DOS. We've got a couple of replays to work through. And Enda, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk a little bit about some of the interesting moves from DOS, because they were questionable at best.
Yeah, I think, like, especially early in the laning phase, there's just, like, a lot of missteps where he's going too far forward, especially when he gets picked here in the bottom lane. You know, at this moment in the game, Gragas on the top side of the map, so even pushing at this point is questionable, but then he's out of position. He's in a position where he can be hooked and run down by his team. And then this flash here, I just don't understand it because you're going to die 100%.
Yeah, there was also multiple instances where it felt like Misfits were just kind of desynced, where a lot of their CC wasn't being changed correctly, that they were throwing all of their knockups simultaneously onto opponents. So I think it's about fine-tuning, and this is kind of one of these synergy issues that you would expect of a team that has just gotten together.
Yeah, and there were all these fights around this bottom lane, around Hansama and DOS, and they kept trying to force them, even though here Kirei was horribly outmatched in terms of itemization, so Trick comes in with a completed Cinderhulk. I think there's just a Chilling Smite on the side of Kirei. This fight ends up being a 3-for-3 because Leader does come here first, but it snowballed Trick so far ahead of the rest of the composition that he was just able to just run over the rest of the game.
It really felt like, as you said, decision-making, positioning, vision on the side of Misfits was one of a rookie squad. A number of times, Froskurinn, you were saying, why are you there? What are you doing? And that's kind of the setup for the next replay that we have. It ended up being the Dragon fight that, in my mind, sealed the deal and guaranteed the win for Schalke.
All right, so here, let's just get inside the mind of Misfits. Right now, they're getting outpushed in the mid lane. They're like, okay, screw it, guys. We're just going to go bot lane. We're super far behind. Let's just force a team fight. Remember mid lane, how they were getting outpushed? All of a sudden, they don't have priority. A TP comes in from the side. They're trying to turn things around, but they cannot kill anyone on Schalke's team. They're just too beefy at the moment. Leader does not do enough damage. They end up just getting run down and completely forced out of this game. This is, just moments after that fight. They had previously, traded even in the bottom lane, but they were just over-forcing things, and it was a bad look for them.
And that happened multiple times. I think about the dive when they managed to kill Odo, and Odo's like, this is probably fine. If you look on the rest of the mini-map, his top lane's shoving in because Abba's uncontested on the Aatrox top side. The mid lane was going down. It was just multiple instances where Misfits picked something on the map because it felt like desperation.
Honestly, I don't really understand what Misfits are trying to accomplish. This changed from them because they came in, they beat Fnatic, right? With Dan on a split pusher in the top lane. There was a style that worked for them. And I think about it, it's like bringing in Hansama. I'm cool with that, I think that can be an upgrade. But to completely shift your playstyle to play fully around the bottom lane and put Dan on Karma, then Gangplank, and then Vladimir 3 games in a row, this is just not a formula that's going to get them into playoffs.
It's one of those interesting things when you look at pro teams and pro players where they kind of try to diversify their play style when it's not the time to do so. If you have a winning formula, try double down on it. It's how Fnatic keeps staying near the top of the table.
Yeah, it's like start diversifying when you're at the top. When you're at the bottom, just find something that works and ride it up there.
Look, let's turn our attention a little bit to Schalke, because one of the things that our production team and Enda, we were talking about just before the game went live, was the last time we did a post-game for Schalke versus Misfits, Leader played Yasuo, Trick played Sejuani, Schalke dumpstered Yasuo and Misfits, and Trick was just popping off all of Schalke were, of course, but let's talk a little bit about Trick specifically because his Sejuani game was fantastic. He built a proto belt, for goodness sake.
Okay, he's on like a hyper tank. Sejuani got ahead.
Hyper tank.
You're never gonna kill her. When she got like the first early kills, I was like, well, I guess no one's gonna be able to kill the front line from Schalke here. And then when you have it in tandem with Aatrox, those champions are just so powerful when you group up and have skirmishes because it helps Aatrox land those devastating third Qs. So I think as soon as Trick got early kills, it was all over.
Yeah, and even though we set up this idea of jungle and mid early on, you know, in that pre-match, what ended up being the difference, it was jungle support. It was Trick working alongside IgNar to find these fights around bottom lane, making all those spells
connect. It's amazing. Trick is undoubtedly the most impressive player in the game, and he definitely was the best.
No, Trevor.
And he definitely, everybody agrees with me. Why was it IgNar? Because
Justice for IgNar. He is so good. He is constantly beating his opponent's support to the play. Go back and watch the game. It's DOS is nowhere to be found, and IgNar is constantly there in the play, getting it started. This guy had a high assist count for a very good reason. Yeah, Trick's flashy, he's setting up the kills, he had a great game, but IgNar was so on point.
Yeah, and I think specifically the plays you're talking about are revolving around mid lane. We're coming off of a reset where IgNar gets to reset before DOS, before his enemy support. He will always path to mid lane at the same time Trick is going to be there, so they can get a 3v1 going against a leader who just can't do anything about it.
So, Schalke put themselves in a position 9 wins, 6 losses. They guarantee themselves playoffs. And we take a look at the standings, only 2 spots left to go. A lot on the line here for the rest of the squads down at the bottom of the table, but for Schalke, they can breathe easy for the last few games.
Yeah, Schalke can breathe easy, but again, the important thing is making sure you are staying in 4th place. If you want to have a good shot at making it to Athens or to that round 2 of playoffs, 4th place is absolutely crucial.
I don't know. I think that they still have a tough schedule, and again, Vitality's right on their heels. I don't think Schalke can fall asleep at the wheel just yet.
Well, we'll have to see what Schalke does in terms of final seeding, 4th and 5th place. Very big difference maker. The key player of the game to make Froskurinn happy is Trick. 61% of the votes. Look, they both had fantastic games. The thing that I like, though, they are the 2 weapons on the side of Schalke that have unlocked this resurgence and improved from spring to summer for the squad.
I think it's actually a very similar style to what Fnatic play, where you constantly have the jungle and support, and they're blitzing at the mid lane. Yes, Trick does work very well with Abba, but he's got his buddy in tandem with him.
Well, congratulations to Schalke. They make playoffs. Let's turn our attention to the next matchup from 0-4 to 7-7. Vitality's comeback is one of the most impressive in LEC history. This week, they look to complete it by securing spots in
Misfits still fighting for their lives.
So, my India game.
It's Misfits still fighting for their lives. 4-10. 4 wins would be great for them, but it's going to take a long, long road. Oh, DOS is not in good shape here at all. Flayed back. Upset there, the lantern available for him, but Trick is in here in time. DOS still has the flash. Trick, of course, used his earlier on. Flash pop, but there goes the Alistar as well. And now his upset goes very low. 300 HP left on him, but Hansama can't get in close enough. The color comes down, and it looks like Schalke are going to take 2, but Hansama is trying to turn it around. Kirei survives for a moment, but Trick gets the double kill. Hansama just about lands the Void Seeker. One more auto's enough, and he's still alive as Trick eventually takes him down. Trick there with the first kill. Hemo Plague used, and look at the backline. Dan's there, but already it's a double for Trick. And Odo's chasing out Dan. Killer Instinct in by Hansama, but already the rest of his team is down. Upset will fall in the hands of Hansama. Dan trying to face up in against Odo in the 1v1. He loses. Hansama surrounded by 3 hungry wolves of Schalke. It's an ace. And Schalke have done it. They hook in Hansama, and they hook in a spot to playoffs.